Hello everybody, this is Jan for Chess24 and this is the penultimate episode of Jan's Opening Clinic, the show where Chess24 premium members can ask me questions about chess openings, and I do my best to answer them within roughly 5, 6, 7, 8 minute frame. So let's jump right back into the action where we have Mr. Ewok. Is that a Star Wars thing? I think it's a Star Wars thing. It's these... I shouldn't get into it. I always make enemies in the Star Wars community with my lack of Wookiee knowledge. Anyway, he says, "Hi Jan, I have a possibly unreasonable fear of the Benko Gambit, but I cannot seem to find an assuring way to face it. Is the main line of x takes a6 and playing e4 with the idea of king takes f1, g3, king g2 the most challenging line by far? Question mark. Or are there any preferred sidelines that white could try to play for a small but real pull? See, we could try to play them for a real pull. None of these fake pulls. If the main line is indeed the way to go, it would be helpful if you could outline a few ideas that white usually plays for in these positions." Wow, that's a complicated sentence. If the main line is or was indeed the way to go, it would be helpful if I could outline a few ideas that white usually plays for. Anyway, something for white against Benko Gambit? Gotcha. Now I'm sort of on board with Ewok's problem. I, more often than not, as I mention pretty much every show, avoid the Benko Gambit and go for 3 knight to f3, because I feel in practice people are normally more or less out of book after knight f3 and they will go something like cd followed by g6 and I normally get decent positions. Well, after d5, b5 they can typically blitz out 15 moves and play their scheme, which, yeah, I feel often if there's a big rating discrepancy makes black's life a little easier. Too easy than it should be. Having said all these things, I do not consider the Benko Gambit to be the greatest of openings. And I'll give you a couple options. Let's start with some Benko bashing. So after cb-a6, first of all, the line you mentioned after ba with bishop a6, then knight c3, e4 and so on, nowadays I think is just considered to be bad for black, so people normally won't go there with black anymore. The point is after bishop a6, knight c3, d6, whatever, we do all these moves, e4, take, or I guess you could start with knight f3, doesn't really matter. Takes, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, g3 castles, king g2, knight bd7. Black players have really given up on this line with the emergence of this simple pawn push, a4, you know, covers the b5 square, and is preparing. Nice little regrouping, rook a3, knight d2, knight c4, knight b5. And black never really found a recipe against this. The most common moves, I guess, are queen to b6, when I think rook a3 is good. Knight d2 also good. Well, let's start with rook a3. Let's say rook fb8, knight d2, knight to e8, knight to b5. White is just better on all these lines. Put the knight here, put the other knight here. Let black try to get compensation for his missing pawn. Won't be easy. These lines black players aren't really very happy with, especially since white even has options along the way. Instead of knight d2, I think queen c2 is also considered to be pretty good. Knight e8, h4, stuff like this. Black has been struggling here. Instead of queen b6, sometimes they try queen a5, but then, well, queen on a5 is really asking for bishop d2, when I guess the point is now knight d2 is tougher to implement. But you lost another tempo, so here bishop d2, queen a6, queen c2 is also just better for white. Once again, this knight on b5 will be a very helpful presence for white. There's also this line with rook to a6, I believe, turning maybe queen a8 and e6. But once again, rook a3 is a good move. Queen a8, rook e1. All these lines, they don't really work for black, so people have soured on them and they aren't really playing those anymore. I'm aware this is not a conclusive coverage, but these positions, yeah, white should not shy away from. So what black does instead nowadays is go g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4, castles, bishop e2, somehow more accurate than knight f3. To meet the coming queen to a5 business, bishop d2, bishop takes a6 here, it can be useful to be able to recapture on e2 already with the bishop, with the queen. So they start with bishop e2, I think this is the most hotly debated line. Queen a5, bishop d2, bishop a6, and here we see the difference. We go e5, and after bishop takes e2, we would already win by going knight c takes e2, hitting the queen and the horsey. So instead after e5 they play knight to e8, knight f3, d6, and these positions, the computer gives you a little something with white, but they aren't very clear to me. e6, how does this go? Bishop e2, and either queen e2, or ef7, rook f7, queen e2, where, yeah, one can analyze this further, but I believe this is the battlegrounds where black is currently trying to rejuvenate the main line, Benko. Therefore, yeah, you would need a good answer to this as well. The main line that you mentioned with bishop a6, bishop f1. Why, it's just seriously better. And I wouldn't expect it to make a comeback. Now, if you don't like any of this business, e3 is a very respectable sideline. When I think black's main reply was considered to be something like this, but here after bishop d2, white has a lot of pressure. Normally, white's plan is completely different here. It's not to secure the center, it's to give this pawn back for some very rapid and direct play. The line typically goes something like queen b6, knight f3, knight b d5, a4. We're not a pawn up. Black even has a lot of pawns in the center. But white is very fast development. Castles, bishop e7, e4, takes, bishop takes. Stuff like that. Castles, knight to e5. Black has to be very cautious to make it out of the opening alive here. And even objectively, maybe we can play for a small but real pull. So that's a very serious alternative, in my very humble opinion. Of course, after e3, a lot of your Benko diehards will just go to their autopilot and play g6, knight c3, bishop g7, knight f3, castles, when, yeah, white should play a4 and argue that as long as he can capture on b5 in one go, he should have a bit of a pull. But yeah, this is probably the line one has to analyze further, or both lines would have to be analyzed further. But I do think that it's a somewhat rarely used weapon against the Benko, this e3, which gives you very decent chances for an advantage as well. All right, door number 3. And I was thinking about this because I recently looked at this position with colors reversed, which means the position after blindfold chess. Knight f3, d5, c4, d4, b4, c5. And I thought, okay, it's actually not so bad for black. So with the tempo up, I thought this has to be a decent option as well. The point is normally a b takes c here is not great, because now white just goes knight c3, e4, occupies the center and gets a very decent position. The fact that the pawn on a7 is still alive is also a problem for black in many Benko lines, because he cannot organize his typical queenside counterplay. So it's not just a Benko with an extra a-pawn. The main moves here are once again our old friend g6, when I like queen c2, preparing e4, which I think gives white a fairly pleasant position. And the more forcing approach is bishop to b7. Once again, white has options, but to stick with the queen c2's theme makes sense to me. Preparing e4 once again, bc, e4, e6, bishop c4, ed, ed. This is a bit sharper, but I, again, like white's chances here. So, there's 3 systems to meet the Benko for you. Objectively, I do believe all of those offer very decent chances for an advantage. Having said all that, I'll probably play knight f3 again in my next game. But I hope that gives you some options to play for a small but real pull, or big but real pull. Thanks, Mr. Ewok. What else do we have? We have G Lucky. He's saying, "Hi Jan, hi G-Lucky. As white, I play the 5 bishop g5 lines of the Semi-Slav, and I'm happy if black plays either d takes c4 or h6. That makes one of you. I'm less happy if black avoids these lines, and I'd appreciate your help with 5 knight bd7 and 5 bishop e7. After 5 knight bd7, do you recommend allowing the Cambridge springs or playing c takes d5 and trying to transpose to the exchange QGD, Queen's Gambit declined? In previous videos, you've mentioned that after bishop e7, white can play a QGT structure, where black has prematurely committed his pawn to c6. Can you elaborate on a clear way for white to gain an advantage here? And the answer is no. Thanks for your help. I really enjoy your videos. Thank you, G-Lucky. Alright, so let's get to Mr. G-Lucky's problems. What move order is this? Under so good old Semi-Slav, we go bishop g5 when the main moves are dc and h6, but G-Lucky is lucky enough to not be concerned about them. He's asking about 5 knight bd7 and 5 bishop e7. So first, after knight bd7, I'm sure I've played cd5 to transpose the Carlsbad structure here in the past, but the problem is with the move order, if we commit to knight f3 so early, black is not really forced to go towards these positions I like. After bishop d3, for example, there is knight e4, which bothers me. No, there's some theory here, but I thought black was fine. And if we start with queen c2, all these knight h5 systems, directly or with h6, bishop h4, have always been a bit of a thorn in my side as well. Don't really enjoy these for white all that much either. Playable, obviously, but this is the drawback you have to live with, that black is not really forced to play this position, which I'm normally game for any time of the day. So I would probably play e3 and allow the Cambridge springs. I've always believed that in the Cambridge springs, both c takes d5 and knight to d2 should give white decent chances for a small but real pull. After cd5, knight d5, one main line is currently this rook c1 business, which looks decent. They go knight takes c3 mainly, bishop b4, I believe they're concerned about a3, understandably. So they go for this line, bishop a3, rook c2, something like this, b6, bishop d3, bishop a6. Bishop e2 instead of bishop d3 is also a move. But this position I thought white was a little better. So wouldn't mind going for this. And yeah, knight d2, I also consider a decent way to play for an edge. I forgot how the main lines go. Castles, bishop e2, right? Now there's dc or e5 or c5. That would be a bit too much to cover those, all of those in detail here. But I think that white has chances for an advantage as well. However, gun to my head, I would probably play c takes d5, knight d5, rook c1 if I had to face this stuff tomorrow. I hope I don't. So Cambridge springs, yeah, I would allow it. Play cd5. Believe knight d2, also decent option. And as for this bishop e7 business, yeah, surprisingly, or you could also get it via knight bd7, e3, bishop e7. Surprisingly, it's not that bad. I still stand by what I said, that black typically doesn't want to commit to c6 so early. Like Kramnik, he likes to play these positions with the pawn on c7 and then go for a quick c5. But things aren't as simple as we were taught. So after queen c2, short castles, what normally people are taught here is you don't move this bishop because you want to be able to meet d takes c4 with bishop takes c4 in one go. And therefore the main moves are rook d1 or rook c1. But especially after rook d1, I could never find anything I was too excited about in these positions. If black just goes b6 and bishop to b7, it's not very popular, but it's not very bad either. Like, obviously white can continue playing here, and it's not like this is forcing a draw or anything, but I think it's a somewhat underrated setup for black. So I'm not too thrilled about this stuff. And what I would possibly do, which might be a little contradictory to what I said earlier, but I hope it isn't. I will play queen c2, and after castles, now I would probably go c takes d5 here, which is not really trying to punish black for his sins. It's just trying to transpose to a version of the Karlsbad that I'd be comfortable with. Knight takes d5, now with the pawn committed to c6. I do think that white has chances for a decent edge here. Like typically with the pawn on c7, there's lines with knight takes e7 and then c5, or the pawn already being on c5. But here, after queen takes e7, life goes on, but I do think this is a decent version of the, whatever you want to call it, Lasker. And some chances for a pull, even though not winning. But most of the time, people would play e takes d5 here, and then after bishop d3, I think I'll manage to transpose to a version of the Karlsbad that I'm comfortable with. Rook e8 or castles, knight f8, h3. This stuff I've always been happy to play with white. So that's what I would do. But yeah, surprisingly, or at least no one's told me, and I've looked quite a bit, there seems to be no real refutation of this setup. Like rook d1 or rook c1 are possible, but this b6, bishop b7 is fairly resilient. Bishop d3 is another legal move. But then d takes c4 is not so clear. So yeah, this is a bit of an underrated setup. Bishop e7, knight bd7. I would probably just, go for the c takes d5. Try to get Karlsbad structure I can live with. I'm thinking currently if this is a direct transposition to Lasker, but I think it's not direct transposition at least. Anyway, sorry, I am not a bigger help here. There is no clear-cut way, surprisingly. Rook d1 is what, conventional mainstream theory believes to be best. These positions, not so easy, in my humble opinion. So yeah, transpose to this Karlsbad thing, lucky. Things will be okay. Next question by Gustav Chatterjee, number 1. He's saying, hey Jan, sometimes I play one knight f3 as white. So do I, instead of my customary 1c4, to prevent someone from playing some 1e5 lines. I see. I'm happy with most extra options I offer black, including 1 d5, c4, d4. However, there is one move which causes me problems, and that's 1 b6. Seriously? Okay. I really want to play a fianchetto, but here 2 g3, bishop b7, 3 bishop g5, g2, e5 always worries me. Not sure why, but we'll get to that. And when I play b2 c4, they play bishop b7 and just stop me from going for a fianchetto. Can you give me a good solution against this sort of move order thing, Jan? I don't really want to get into some kind of Nimzo or Queen's Indian as white, and also 2e4 is not really my style. I see, a lot of stylistic issues there. But I thought 1 b6 was a much more serious move after 1 c4 than after 1 f3. So just for the record, this is considered to be somewhat better for white, even though I understand. Not the style, this stuff, right? Even though, it's not that obvious, and Carlsen recently played it with black. But for the record, this, I believe, is supposed to somewhat favor white. Or bishop c3. But what I don't understand is you're afraid of g3, bishop b7, bishop g2, e5. Say, I don't understand why. Like, computers are not afraid of this, and it doesn't look right either to combine b6, bishop b7 with a quick e5. So you castle, and white is seriously better, no? What's there to be afraid of? d6, d4 doesn't really work, e4, knight g5. Black is already close to lost. Maybe you can win some beauty prize. Exciting. This looks quite good. So I'm assuming we're also not afraid of knight c6, knight e5. I'm assuming e4 is the sum of all fears. But knight d4, white is much better. d3, c4. This whole construction just doesn't look right at all. So, yeah, I don't really get it. Stuff like this, there's multiple ways to get an edge already. d4, knight to c3, c4. It just doesn't work for black. dc, both dc and te do favor white. So, yeah, don't understand. This is not a position to avoid. This is, yeah, fantastic position for white. Just do this. Seems a bit of an irrational fear to be afraid of. b6, bishop b7, followed by e5. Castle. Black can't play like that. With white one can take such liberties. With black, I really doubt it. It's like Dream Alekhine with colors reversed. Yeah, best of luck battling knight f3, b6. For the record, I should say that my only issue is with the move e5 here. Black can of course play knight f6 here, castles e6, and get a perfectly normal position, but I'm assuming that's not troubling. Here you can do whatever, c4, b3. Transpose to normal stuff. Alright, thanks for the question, Gustav Chatterjee 1. Then we have Mr. Danotello. Maybe, but I can't be sure about this, maybe related to Donatello, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, but I'm not sure. He's saying, hi Jan, what is the best way for white to mate e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, d6, c3, bishop d7, d4, knight g7, castles, knight g6, and 7 g6, or 6 g6. Which one is it? I'm not sure when I should play d5 or d5 or just maintain the tension. I know you don't like these questions, but can you show some ideas and main continuations for white? As they say, everything that comes before the word but. I know you don't like these questions, but come on, stop being a sissy. Show me ideas and plans anyway. Like, go d5, then go c4, then go b4, then go c5. There's a plan. Alright, Danotello, let's put it on the board. We had similar questions earlier. There's a6, d6. Mamedyarov has been doing it on and off. Yeah, it's not bad, even though after bishop d7, d4, I guess it's more flexible / better for black to start with g6 than with the move mentioned by Danotello, knight g7. So knight g7 short castles, and yeah, you mentioned knight g6. I think this is the dream scenario for white to actually go for this King's Indian structure with d5 and c4. So here, even I would do it. And I'm normally not a big fan of fixed structures. The thing is, it's not on g6. It's sort of impeding the natural black plan to prepare f5 by going g6. So after d5, knight b8, c4 here. Yeah, I really don't like black's position. Bishop e7, knight to c3. Short castles. I guess you take bishop e3. Sorry, I'm not mentioning any ideas and plans, but, you know, get the pieces out. Then grab space on the queen side. Maybe on a rainy day we can come up with some deep maneuvers like knight e1, knight d3. Even though that allows bishop to g5. So in general, you know, I don't think in terms like that, but if I had another move here, I would probably push this pawn to b4. Black will typically try to do something like, actually maybe I'd go rook e1, not pawn to b4. Black will typically try to do something like knight h4, exchange his silly looking knight. Knight takes, bishop takes, queen g4 is good here, which once again was not a plan if black doesn't play knight h4. But it seems like a good reaction to stop bishop g5 and f5 and all that stuff. White is better here. And if they, what else do they play? If they play h6 here, yeah, we can just continue waiting with rook e1. Still dreaming of grabbing more space. And the problem is black doesn't really have any counterplay here. f5 is normally positional suicide after ef, rook f5, wherever knight e4. The light squares in black's camp are just too weakened. So the knight g6 line I don't really like. And after knight g6, it makes a lot of sense to me to go d5. Also now de5 doesn't look particularly appetizing. Having said all these things, and more to illustrate that I really don't like knight g6, there's nothing wrong as far as I can see in just doing the standard Ruy Lopez business with rook e1, knight b2, knight f1, knight g3. White should be a little better as well. So knight g6 is not serious, in my opinion. If they go g6 here, the question gets a little tougher. Obviously, you can still make a case for d5, followed by c4, and then the usual plans thing, you know, grab space on the queen side, blah, blah, blah. Even though here I'm less certain about it, and I probably wouldn't do it. I probably would play some sneaky move like bishop b3, hoping for bishop g7 when knight g5, short castles, f4 is good. Of course, black can probably do better than bishop to g7, but if he plays a move like h6 here, it's already becoming more tempting to not go for the d5 structures, but instead keeping the tension by something like bishop e3, bishop g7, d takes e5, something along those lines. And, well, might not be much, but seems playable to me. Or getting the pieces out with knight to a3. So here, yeah, I'm a lot more torn already, as you can hear, by the tone of my voice. It might be personal preference, though. And once again, once the aliens take over the world and solve chess, or AlphaZero, or whoever's going to do it, I would not be the slightest bit surprised if they tell me everything is a draw, but this d5 and c4 plan actually wins for white. Bishop g7, knight to c3, and it's just a better position for white. So that could very much happen. Personally, yeah, I'm not big on closing the position like that, so I only would do it under excellent circumstances, like with the knight coming to g6. Yeah, I think the best move order out of all of those for black is to start with g6 castles, bishop to g7, not committing the knight to e7, not allowing any bishop b3, knight g5 shenanigans. And here, yeah, this is a question we've had a lot over the opening clinics, discussing different options like bishop g5, f6, bishop e3 was a topic once, when I think I was arguing back then that this should be tenable for black after knight h6. Rook e1 was a move I once talked about. I forgot what I was arguing in that one. Now with the rook committed to e1, knight g7, once again, makes a bit more sense to me. When, yeah, it's not completely clear to me how white should play. Once again, I guess d5, c4 is typically the correct way, but personal preference and because of my dislike for long-term plans and maneuvering, I probably would not do it, but play some random move here. And struggle with the same question that you've mentioned, that if we don't commit to d5 or to e5, what are we really doing? I am not completely sure myself, and I apologize for that uncertainty. One can, and I might try to keep the tension, but I have a feeling that objectively such stuff only gives black more options, that we should decide and to pull the trigger and go for this d5, c4, knight c3, which, especially once the knight is committed to go here. Which, yeah, I don't really like, but I still believe that white is better. Sorry, I know that doesn't exactly answer your question, but as you know, I think chess is too concrete of a game to keep mumbling about, yeah, prepare c5 and then, you know, gain space on the queen side and you'll be better. I'm not going to be able to do it. So yeah, it's a full-fledged system, Danotello, especially this 6g6. There are no easy answers. I apologize. Let's move to an easier topic, move-by-move stuff. Shawnee83. Hi Jan, love your work and the new format. Thank you so much, Shawnee83. Just wondering, what you would recommend for black against the trendy 3 bishop d3 in the French. Semi-trendy? Is it really trendy? I never see anybody play it. Maybe it's just trendy in your head. The main line seems to be e4, e6, d4, d5, bishop d3, de, bishop e4, knight f6, bishop f3, c5, knight e2, knight c6, bishop e3, cd, knight d4, knight e5, knight c3, and then either bishop b4 or bishop e7, when Angel Arribas and Pepe Cuenca like 10b5 in their Chess24 series. Maybe it's more trendy in Spanish chess circles. Was wondering, A, what you would recommend for black here, and B, is there another answer to 3 bishop d3 that leads to more semi-close positions that us French defense players can play in our sleep? Oh, this is provoking me into a speech again, that you don't want positions that you can play in your sleep. If you can play them in your sleep, you're not working hard enough. Chess, you know, concrete game, blah, blah, blah. Don't just try to get a close position and take it from there. Anyway, Shawnee 83. The good news is, or I'm not sure if it's good news. I don't think that line is all that scary. And I've talked about it in the past. This, by the way, is never criticism that why didn't you guys watch everything I've ever said and done, but more of a reminder for myself that I think we've covered this very topic on prior shows. So d takes bishop d3, it's an ugly looking move because of the d takes e4 and knight f6. Black wins a tempo, so to my mind there's no real question. For alternatives, if you really want to, you can go knight f6, but this is a dream version for white where he hasn't committed to knight c3 or knight d2 or anything. So yeah, just don't do that. Here you're worse, after d4 you're fine. So go d4, bishop e4, knight f6, bishop f3, c5, knight e2, and I guess I keep alternating my answer here. First of all, I think white's point, I know I've talked about this in the past. White's point is knight c6, bishop e3, then this line you mentioned with cd, knight d4, knight e5. I don't think this line is scary for black. Knight c3, of course bishop b4, knight b5 is a serious mistake. But if you go bishop e7, I think black is perfectly fine. But let's not play along the main line. One point I always like to make here is that the one trick from white's point of view is considered to be that knight d5 bad because of bishop d5, queen d5, knight bc3. Not true. Black is fine here. Queen g2, rook g1, queen h2. And the complications are actually okay for black. Bishop f4, queen h3, knight b5, that's white's big trick. But here, after f6, knight c7, king f7. Knight takes a8, cd4. I'm aware there's a small problem, we're currently rook down. But black actually has enough play. And this is not a position that white really wants. So, for example, and this, I know I've talked about this exact line in the past, but for example, stuff like this. I think your unsuspecting 3 bishop d3 expert rubbing his hands after knight d5 would be in for a rude awakening if all of a sudden he has to play such positions. Alternatives along the way, blah blah blah, but fine for black. Now, with all the disclaimers out of the way, let's get to my recommendation du jour. Many lines for white are based on the fact that after knight bc6, bishop e3, he takes on d4 with knight, and then he's gaining some time with the threat of knight takes c6. So one very good system for black here is to, don't commit to knight to c6 so early. Go bishop e7. White will typically castle. Now you castle. And it's not clear what white is up to. If he goes bishop e3 here, then c takes d4, knight takes d4, and e5 is very powerful. Now that there's no knight on c6 to take, knight e2, e4 would also be a bit awkward. So yeah, that's not great for white. Therefore, I guess they will normally play knight bc3 here. But now that this knight is committed to c3, now is a decent time for black to switch gears. Now go knight c6, bishop e3, queen a5 seems to be a good move. Preparing rook to d8. And once again, I am not particularly impressed with White's cause here. Queen e1 is computer move takes 94, 95. And this looks like a better version than the other stuff we had before. So, 3 bishop d3. Yeah, decent surprise weapon, but against a prepared black player. And by prepared, I mean, yeah, spending the amount of time I spent in order to answer this question, it's unlikely to yield an advantage, in my opinion. Also, yeah, I don't know, I'm a bit of a chess, what's the word, purist? No, that's not really true. But I like to believe that it can't be good for White to just give a tempo like this in the opening. It just, yeah, and take this square away from the knight. So if this led to White advantage, I would have to stop believing in a lot of stuff I believe in. So yeah, not a fan. And yeah, you French players, maybe that's the reason bishop d3 works. It's not the position that French players like to have with their knight on t7, and they can go for c5 and f6. So I hope it makes you uncomfortable. I'm not here to help French players out, but I'm trying to be honest. And I don't think bishop d3 is gonna be the refutation of the French defense. Hope I could help, even though not too much. Shawnee 83. Wow, Snooks is backing up Shawnee, saying, great question, Shawnee 83. I've been wondering the exact same thing. Fantastic. And Snooks. I thought that was your question. But no, it's a new question. Come on, what is this? This is turning me into an advocate of the French defense. You guys know, I've never played the French in my life. I will never play it. Not a fan. I'm not on your side. The only reason that I'm defending Black's cause here is because this is the opening clinic. And I try to give honest opinions even on the French. Heartbreaking as it is. So Snooks is saying, hi Jan, following on from Shawnee 83's question about annoying sidelines against the French defense. Do you have a recommendation about how I should deal with the French Wing Gambit? Another line that has not caused me any lost sleep. e4, e6, knight f3, d5, e5, c5, b4. I've always struggled against it, and I'm slightly surprised it isn't more popular. How do I knock it into a cocked head? Not an impression I'm familiar with. And I'm trying not to picture the wrong thing there. Knock it into a cocked head. I love the suggestion you gave against the King's Indian attack in your recent video series, by the way. Very handy for us French players. Darn you French players, I'm helping you way too much. Keep up the good work. Best regard, Snooks. Okay. To all French players out there, I hope we can still be friends. Alright, French Wing Gambit. e4, e6, knight f3. c5 looks like a good move here to me, by the way. Stops the Wing Gambit and all. But no, I'm just teasing. d5, e5. You go c5. Now they hit you with b4. Trying once again to undermine your Frenchness, your French structure after cb4. They want to occupy the center eventually with d4 and not be bothered by this pawn. So, couple thoughts. Thought number one, I don't know what's wrong with b6. Isn't that logical to recapture with the pawn? Keep things going? That's the end of the thought. I think they go c3, knight c6, a3, d4 was a line. Which I understand, it's not a very French structure, but looks fine for black. So yeah, that's thought number one. Just play b6. Thought number two. The pawn is hanging. Take it. a3, you go knight c6. They will take and play c3, because that's what they want. c3, d4, bishop d3, bishop a3. Then probably recapture with the knight, put the knight on d6, checkmate you. I know my Wing Gambiteers. You go bishop e7. I like this better than bishop a5, which seems also playable. It feels more, you know, in tune with the rest of the game. And your plan is to play f6 ASAP. This knight can come here. So if they go d4, which seems like the best move, we go f6, try to undermine this structure, which white was trying to establish. I guess bishop d3 looks like a logical move. Now you take. If pawn takes, you go queen c7. Hitting the pawn and also maybe preparing, just maybe, don't you worry, future long castles, even though unlikely. Queen e2 to defend the pawn, now knight h6. Black is fine. Black is a pawn up with a good position. Knight wants to go here. Bishop h6, gh, not a particular concern. So yeah, that seems fine to me. Immediate knight h6 also seems fine. I think that's all I got. The Wing Gambit, yeah, I guess white maintains equality. If you don't want to get involved at all, just play b6. When, yeah, I'm not aware of any particular problems. This line becomes a little more tricky, but I firmly believe that takes c3, bishop e7, d4, f6 will solve all of black's problems, even though you might have to play some chess. It's a sharp position that I will concede. Hope that helps you. Mes amis français. What else do we have? We have divbyzero. He's saying, hiya, I recently started to combat the exchange Spanish with e4, e5, now 3 knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop c6, dc, castles, bishop g4, h3, bishop h5. Yeah, I had a game or two there, like in the old days. Didn't really like it. After some logical natural moves, g4, bishop g6, bishop e5, knight h4, I'll put on the board, eventually. Queen h4, queen f3, f6, knight g6, ht, king g2, long castles, d3, g5, rook h1, knight e7, bishop e3, king b8, queen g3. Those are logical natural moves? Come on, divbyzero. My engine says it's roughly equal, or maybe a tiny little bit better for white. However, it seems to me as if I'm a pawn down for not very much. The position till move 11 occurred twice in a recent Stockfish versus Houdini match. Looking at these games, I had the impression that black just holds with computer-like precision. What am I missing here? Or is something wrong with the line above? Basically, I agree with your sentiment. I stopped playing this line bishop g4, bishop h3, bishop h5 after a game against Jordi Majem. I don't know, 10 years ago or whenever it was. Because I had the feeling that it wasn't quite enough for the pawn. And yeah, there's no particular need. If you want to play something funky, sacrificing a pawn, you can go knight e7, knight e5, queen d4. That's, yeah, in my opinion, is a sexier pawn sacrifice than the bishop g4, h3, bishop h5. Even though, yeah, I'm not sure if it's mathematically bad. As you mentioned, computers tend to have some sympathy for the black cause here and say that it's just positional compensation. I'm a bit surprised you gave natural logical moves starting with long castles when I think you mentioned yourself that in the recent computer match they didn't play that, and also most games black starts with g5, knight e7, knight g6 here. He wants to keep the option open if he wants to castle queenside or not. So if you're looking for a move by move improvement, then I think starting with g5 is probably a little better for black, even though I still agree with the general sentiment. I think now they go queen h7, intending knight g6, maybe queen g8. I still agree with the notion that white should be somewhat better here. But yeah, people play like this. And then they argue, haha, your rook is on h1. People/computers. So in your line, what was it? King g2, long castles, which, yeah, maybe teeny tiny bit inaccurate. d3, g5, rook h1, knight e7, bishop e3, king b8. Also not the most obvious move in the world to me. But yeah, I guess preparing knight g6 so there's no queen f5 check. Once again, showing that maybe it's smarter to go knight e7, knight g6 without long castles first. Here, queen g3 doesn't strike me as too logical. The queen wants to go away anyway to provoke queen h6, tending knight g6. Not an obvious choice to me. Knight d2 looks like a better move. And once again, yeah, it's these things where the game continues. Black claims long-term compensation. White at some point will have to start attacking on the queen side. And yeah, I didn't really fully believe this line for black either, and I felt it was tougher to play with black, and I was also feeling a little uncomfortable just being that quote-unquote clear pawn down. But the position is very sharp, and if computers keep holding it and keep giving decent evaluations, who am I to say it's not a playable line? I did agree with the feeling that you also seem to be expressing, that it doesn't really seem to be enough over the board, and therefore, yeah. I moved on to one of the 18 other playable lines, like queen f6. I've had some games which I think is decent. Recently, Caruana won a nice game here. f6, I played a bit, even though f6 d4 feels like this is one of the spots where white has some hope for an advantage. Bishop d6 is very solid. Knight e7, as I mentioned, if you're looking for somewhat sharper play, I think is a very decent option. And so on and so forth. So, yeah, there's bishop g4, bishop h5. Even though it looks cool, I agreed that it's hard to fully trust over the board. If you want an improvement to the line you gave, instead of long castles, start with g5, as mentioned. That's more flexible. All right. The Big Chess Theory. He's saying, hi Jan, I don't know what to do against a specific setup against the King's Indian defense. d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6, bishop e2, castles, g4. Whoa. Normally in the key ID, I like to attack white, but in this variation I end up being attacked. White's plan is to follow up with h4, g5, and then h5 to crush black's kingside. I guess black should try to get counterplay in the center, but I don't know how. I can tell you, don't you worry. Hopefully you can let me know how to play against the setup. Thank you in advance. You're welcome in advance. Yeah, this is not a good line. So, d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6, bishop e2, castles, g4. Looks cool, but I think it's a bit much. c5 is the best reaction. White goes d5, you go e6. Like we learned in chess school, and like you also mentioned, we try to get counterplay in the center. White will go g5, you go knight to e8 back. White will normally go h4, but he's not in time. E takes d5. Black is better here. White, yeah, has two main ways to recapture on d5, where we'll guess c takes d or e takes d. If e takes d, here we can, and probably should, actually, do the unthinkable. Give up our fianchetto bishop. Bishop takes c3, b takes c, and bishop f5. I understand, we're under attack, and then we give up our bishop. Looks crazy, but I don't think it's that crazy. This diagonal is pretty much closed forever, so the bishop won't be missed there. And with the bishop on f5, it will also be very hard for us to get checkmated after hg. We can always go bishop g6 or fg6. It's hard to imagine any scenario where we can run into trouble here, while black has a better structure and very easy development. h5, knight d7, for example, hg, fg. This would just be a disaster for white. So, yeah, e d5. Don't impress me much. c d5 does not either, because now you go queen e7, once again, hinting at bishop c3, followed by queen e4. So white probably should not go too crazy. h5, bishop c3 just doesn't work for white. And if he plays a move like I don't know, queen c2, trying to keep the center, now you open the position by going f5. And once again, black is better. gf, knight f6, or ef, bishop f5. So, long story short, g4, not really a good line. Meet it Benoni style, c5, d5, e6. Probably white at this point should try to cut his losses and meet, instead of g5, knight e8, meet it with something like f3. But this is the best Benoni. you will probably ever get after ed, cd, knight, bd7. This pawn on g4 looks a bit out of place. You can meet h4 with h5. So, yeah, white players wouldn't do that. They would play g5, but it would probably backfire. Therefore, bishop e2 followed by g4. Not the greatest of systems. I think I will end the show here so we have some material left for the season finale. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for sending in questions. One more show to get through, and then we'll take a bunch of new questions. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye bye.